It's time for another episode of the Shaun Tabatt Show, a podcast where I connect you with thought leaders from across the globe, digging into some of my favorite topics like personal development, marketing, spirituality, and pretty much any other shiny object that happens to catch my attention. I recently listened to the audiobook edition of Noah St. John's small but mighty book, The Great Little Book of Affirmations, and I just had to have him back in the show for a conversation on the power of affirmations to unlock the life that you've always dreamed of. Noah, it's an honor to have you back, man. Welcome.
Well, thank you, Shaun. Great to be back with you.
Now, I know some of you haven't listened to our previous interview, so let's start with a little bit of an introduction. This is a long one. You got to really pay attention because Noah is this amazing guy who's done all these amazing things, and we're going to fit all of his accomplishments into like a paragraph. So here we go. Noah St. John is known as the Power Habits Mentor and is famous for helping people get rid of their head trash and make more money. He is the only author in history to have works published by Hay House, HarperCollins, Simon & Schuster, Mind Valley, Nightingale Conant, and the Chicken Soup for the Soul publisher. Noah also appears frequently in the news worldwide, including ABC, NBC, CBS, Fox, Parade Magazine, Entrepreneur.com, and the Huffington Post. And I'm sure we're going to mention this at the end of the interview, but I want to let you know right up front that you can get 50% off of the Affirmation system if you head on over to Afformations.com. Noah, that was a mouthful. Anything I miss, any gaps that you need to fill in from the introduction?
Well, I appreciate that, Shaun. And what I want folks to know right now is that I help people to make money from home. And that's something that I've been doing for the last 2 decades. I've had a successful work from home business for literally since 1997, for more than 2 decades now. And what's funny is that so many people, you and I were talking about this earlier, are hiring me to coach them and say, hey, Noah, I can't go anywhere. Can you help me make money from home? I'm like, yeah, that's what I've been doing for a long time. So, yes. So, yeah, I mean, it's, and I'm sure we're all hearing this now that, with all of the challenging things that are going on out there in the world, and they're very serious, there's still great opportunity. And, we've heard a lot of the memes or seen, the things that so many fortunes have been built, like were built in the first Great Depression and, during the last recession of 2008. So, I've helped people make money through the dot-com bubble burst of 1999, through the aftermath of 9/11, through the financial setbacks of 2008 and more. So it really is a time to look at opportunities and also to look at the things you can control versus what you cannot control.
Well, that is a reality I think we need to reflect on. So many fortunes, so many success stories in terms of rise to wealth and innovations. It all comes out of hard times. Like you mentioned the Great Depression, or I think of times after the world wars. Right. Often in the ashes of destruction, beautiful things rise up, amazing things rise up. And, we're still not fully on the other side of this, but, I think we need to be positive. We will recover. We will move forward. We're not going to be stuck here forever. And hey, if we're all going to be stuck doing all these things from home now, we need to do it effectively. So, man, your skill sets are now more valuable than ever. That's actually a very exciting time for you.
Well, it is. And I mean, the human cost is very enormous, both in terms of lives and money that have been lost. And so this is a very, very serious thing. But at the same time, those of us who are still here, I mean, the truth is that I recently lost a family member to the COVID virus, and he died. He went into the hospital, and 32 days later, he died from the virus. So, I know a lot of people out there don't know anyone personally who has been affected by this. And, some people say, well, it's all been hyped up and stuff. And, I'm not even going to get into all of that. But I mean, until, the numbers show that well over 1 million people just in these United States are affected with the virus. And and over 80,000 people have already died. But those are just numbers, really, until you know someone, until it affects you personally. They're just like numbers, they're just statistics. And you're like, yeah, okay. So, listen, one of the things that I've been working with my coaching clients, both one-on-one and in group settings, is none of us are guaranteed anything. We're not guaranteed tomorrow. We are guests here on this earth. And right now we're unwelcome guests. Let's be honest. Humanity I'm talking about. And so, but we're here. We have to live. We have to eat. We have to survive. And, wouldn't it be nice to also be fulfilled and happy in that? So, as I mentioned a moment ago, I've been doing this for a very long time. I've seen a lot of things come and go. This is something that, of course, none of us have ever seen, and it is very serious. But what are we going to do? We can focus on what we can't control, which, of course, just makes you feel more helpless and hopeless. So believe me, I have to do this on myself too. But with all of the people that we're working with, our one-on-one clients, our group clients, in our virtual trainings, and even when I'm doing like private workshops for companies and organizations, that's one of the things we focus on is, all right, let's just focus on what we can control versus what we cannot.
Well, and I think this is expanded to the point where most of us have friends, families, somebody that we know who has been directly impacted, and so we need to take the time to grieve. We need to take the time to feel all the things. But on the other side of that, we do need to find a way to move forward and a way to keep going on with life. So thank you for sharing a little bit of your story. Thank you for that encouragement. Next, let's transition into what we might call the story behind the book. I think this may be a first for the show, as I don't often ask people to tell me their shower stories, but we're going to go there today because it's a critical part of the Afformations system origin story. So Noah, tell us about the surprising discovery you made in the shower back in 1997. What happened there?
Yeah, well, and I appreciate you asking that. And so just to give everybody just a little bit of a perspective, I grew up poor in a rich neighborhood. And I know that's a total cliche, but it's totally true. I grew up in a little town called Kennebunkport, Maine, which just happens to be one of the wealthiest communities in New England. But my family was dirt poor. And I mean that literally, because we lived at the bottom of a dirt road in a drafty, unfinished house that my parents ended up losing to foreclosure. So from a very young age, I hated that life of poverty and fear and lack and not enoughness. That's all I grew up with in my family. But right down the street, I saw that there was great wealth and abundance. So speakers all the time, they say, well, the secret to success is hard work. Bull. No, it isn't. My parents worked really hard and they were never successful. So no, that's not true at all. You can work really hard and still fail, so that's not it. So from a very young age, because I hated that life of poverty, I said, I got to get out of this. And I just started reading books. I'm a nerd. I love going to the library. I love going to bookstores and reading books. So I just started reading every book that I could on personal growth, self-help, Dale Carnegie, Napoleon Hill, Stephen Covey, all the classics of self-help. And really tried to put them to work, but I couldn't. I just could never succeed. I tried really hard, but again, going back to that notion of hard work is not enough. I worked hard and it wasn't good enough. So at the age of 25, I actually decided to commit suicide because I was so depressed. I was so frustrated, and I really didn't see any way out. Now, at the last minute, my life was spared. I do tell that story in my books and then my online courses. But long story short, I realized that I was still here on this earth for some reason, but I didn't know what it was. So I said, well, I got to find why I'm here, And so I went on another journey, this one more of a spiritual journey, where I started reading, the spiritual thinkers of our time, like Louise Hay, Neil Donald Walsh, Deepak Chopra, Ernest Holmes, and people like that. So fast forward 5 years later, and in April 1997, I was a religious studies major in college. So it was my second time in college. I was still trying to find my way. What am I here on earth to do? And, I was studying religious studies, trying to just kind of figure out why I'm here. And so one morning, well, let me say this. In all those books that I've read, that I had read, right, every self-help book out there, they all say the same thing, right? You got to use these affirmations, right? You got to use these statements because that's how you're going to change your life, right? Use these statements, like I'm happy, I'm rich, I'm successful, and I'm good enough, I'm smart enough, and gosh darn it, people like me, right? And we kind of make fun of that for that reason, because it's like, yeah, but, and I love to do this at, whenever I'm speaking for corporations or associations or colleges, universities, or for entrepreneurial groups, real estate, network marketing groups, pretty much anywhere. I always like to say, all right, everybody, we're going to use a traditional affirmation, right? Everybody stand up and say, I am rich. Everybody goes, I am rich. And then they start laughing. And I go, what are you laughing at? And they say, well, I'm not rich. And I go, but you just said you were. And they go, yeah, but I don't believe it. Aha. See, now that's the problem, right? See, we say these statements that are positive, right? And they're supposed to change us. But really what happens is we just don't believe it, right? Now, what we've been taught for decades, literally for decades, the gurus taught us, well, if you don't believe your statement, just repeat it 1,000 million billion cajillion times. So what they're really saying, if you break it down, they're really saying, well, listen, just bash your brain into submission. Just keep pounding away at that brain, right? Now, for some people, that worked fine, right? Some people were like, oh, all right, but for millions of us, it didn't work at all. And that was what happened to me, right? So I did everything they said. I mean, I'm a nerd. I followed the steps, right? Like, okay, you write it down, you put it in the positive. And I had, these Post-it notes all over my room. I'm like, I'm happy, I'm successful, I'm rich. No, I'm not. I'm broke, I'm miserable, and unhappy. So I'm like, this isn't working. I was so frustrated. So, and when I share that story, a lot of people are like nodding their head like, yeah, I can relate, man. And so the point is, one morning, it was April 1997, I was in the shower and I was thinking about this very point. I'm like, how come I've been doing this for so long, following all the steps, and I'm not getting anything, right? It's totally frustrating. So I said, okay, well, listen, what are we talking about here? We're talking about beliefs, right? But what is a belief? Well, a belief is just a thought, but what is thought? And as I thought about that, I realized that human thought is the process of asking and searching for answers to questions. Not statements, but questions. For example, I can prove this to you and Shaun and everybody listening. Everybody listening, I like to play a game, when I'm speaking, but so we can just play along here. I'm going to ask you a question. I want you to see what happens. Why is the sky blue? Why is the sky blue?
Because that's how it was made.
All right. See, now look at what just happened in your brain, right? And everybody, I hope you were playing along, at home. But the point is, what just happened, I asked you a question, and in that instant, your brain started to search for the answer, right? In fact, You couldn't not do it. You couldn't even help it. You did it without your volition. And so I said, in other words, you did it automatically. So I said, now, wait a second. If the human mind is automatically searching for answers to questions, why are we going around making statements we don't believe? Why don't we just cut out the middleman? And I said, well, what would that look like? Well, let's see. So you got the statement or affirmation to which your brain replies, yeah, right. Right. In my books and my courses, I call it the yeah, right response, because your brain already goes, yeah, right. Right. So I said, if that's the statement, then what would the question be? And then I said, in the shower, why am I so rich? Why am I so rich? Now, when you ask that question, what immediately starts to happen in your brain? You start to search for the answer, right? So exactly. What we're talking about here, and what I've been teaching now for these many years, is the law of sowing and reaping. As you sow, so shall you reap. Now, of course, this is nothing new. It's been taught for centuries. But what are we sowing? We're sowing seeds of thought. And yet, what are most people doing? Sowing lousy thought seeds. Why am I so stupid? Why am I so fat? Why can't I lose weight? Why isn't my business growing? Why can't I get more customers? Why can't I get more patients? Why can't I get more signups? Why is there a month left at the end of the money? And when you ask lousy questions, what do you get?
Lousy answers.
Lousy answers, right. And that creates a lousy life. So I said, now, wait a second. What if instead of asking lousy questions that lead to lousy answers, create a lousy life, what if we just flip the whole thing on its head? Start asking empowering questions that lead to phenomenal answers and create a wonderful life. And as I was standing there in the shower, April 1997, I said, holy cow, I think I just invented something. And so I had to give it a name, and the name that I gave it was Afformations, Afformations, like, Afformations at Afformations.com. As you mentioned a moment ago, you can learn more about my Afformations method at Afformations.com. And so the point is, I literally jumped out of the shower. I ran to my Apple computer. I wrote everything down that I just discovered literally in the shower. It was, again, I call it the shower that changed everything. And so I went, wow, that is really cool. Now what do I do? Because remember, this was 1997. This was before Facebook, YouTube, blogging, social media. There was none of that, right? So anybody remember being online in 1997, right?
A little bit, yeah.
Right? You put like maybe, every website was like, 6 pixels or whatever. I mean, it was just crazy. But anyway, so I'm like, well, I got to get the message out. I got to tell people about my discovery, because I'm like, this is so cool. This could really help people. So long story short, I self-published a book called Permission to Succeed. And in that book, it's the first place on the earth that anybody ever talked about Afformations. And this is Jack Canfield actually met me at an awards ceremony. He looked at my self-published book. This was back in 1998. And then in 1999, I got a book deal from the Chicken Soup for the Soul people, as you mentioned a moment ago. And so my book, Permission to Succeed, was published by the Chicken Soup for the Soul publisher. And now, as you mentioned, now we've been published in over 18 languages, 15 books, and we've helped our coaching clients literally add over $2.7 billion not just using Afformations, of course, but using all of my different systems, methodologies, and formulas. But Afformations was really the genesis of everything. And with a name like Noah, you know a lot about Genesis. So.
Amen. Amen. I love that. So you've given us kind of the backstory of how Afformations first got started. Next, I'd love to hear a little bit about how did Afformations transform your life individually? And then, as you've been teaching this for so many years, what are some of the ways your clients, your customers, readers of the book, how have they been impacted? And maybe like some kind of a health example, I think would be good.
Yeah.
And then a business example as well.
Sure. Absolutely. By the way, in my Afformations course and in my book of Afformations, which was published by Hay House, I do give you hundreds of examples of Afformations in the book alone. There's over 400 different Afformations in areas, all different areas of your life, like health and well-being, money and abundance, building self-confidence, work and career, love, intimacy, family relationships, and so forth. So yeah, it basically fixes everything, because if you look at this, and this is what I often, say to my audiences, whether in person or virtually, during workshops or training programs, I will often say to them, my audiences, what is one area of your life where your beliefs don't affect you? And of course they go, and I go, exactly. There's no place your beliefs don't affect you, right? Your beliefs affect your health. Your beliefs affect your wealth, right? Your business, your love life, your relationships, your social life, your relationship to everything in the world. There is no place where your beliefs don't affect you. But the key is you can't see a belief. You can only see the effects of a belief, right? So in other words, it's sometimes hard to know, well, how do we change a belief? Well, all you have to do is look at your life and say, well, okay, maybe you might be doing really well in your health, but maybe your business is struggling, or maybe your relationships are doing well, but you're struggling with money or whatever. See, it's not cookie cutter, one size fits all. We really have to look at each individual person, in each individual situation. And so, one of the things that I teach is about how to actually look at the different areas of your life and where you need to focus your effort, your energy, and your money. I mean, in terms of if you need to, hire a coach or work with a mentor or whatever it might be in whatever area. What I talk about is really the two areas of inner game and outer game. The inner game is everything that I've been talking about, right? Your beliefs, your mindset, the things you can't see directly, but that they affect everything that you do. That's what I call your inner game. And then your outer game is everything you can see directly. That would be like the digital marketing, right? The books and packages and things that you publish. And if you are a speaker, a coach, an author, or a service provider, somebody who wants to actually touch lives all around the world. What we call it is having more impact, more influence, and more income, those three I's, right? And that's, of course, what we all want. And so to give you a couple of examples of how that might work. So, you asked about health and business. So with health, one of the things that we look at is, well, where is it you want to go? All right. So think about any time I'm teaching about goals or goal setting, I always talk about driving a car. All right. So most human beings would not get in a car, start it up, back out of the garage, drive around in circles, and then come back home. That doesn't make any sense. That's just well, why would you do that, right? But most people are living their lives like that. See, in other words, they don't really have a destination. They don't know where they want to go. Okay, so they're living their lives basically driving around in circles, number one. Number two, imagine if you have a goal. It's well, no, I know where I want to go, right? I've got my destination and I want to, make more money. I want to lose weight. I want to find love. I want a happy marriage, whatever it might be, right? Happy family life, et cetera, right? So that's my goal, right? Great. But did you realize that right now, millions of people are unknowingly, unconsciously driving down the road of life with one foot on the brake? In other words, at the same time that they're trying to move towards their goals, they're unconsciously holding themselves back from doing that very thing. So the analogy is, imagine if you're driving in a car and you got one foot on the brake and one foot on the gas. Now, what all the gurus do out there is they say, well, step on the gas harder. Hey, if you're not reaching your goals faster, set your goals. If you're not reaching your goals fast enough, then step on the gas, right? Use willpower, hustle, start grinding, blah, 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 blah. Okay, they're not wrong exactly. But again, put yourself back in the car. You're in a car, you're driving, you got one foot on the brake, one foot on the gas. Somebody comes along and says, hey, step on the gas harder. What's going to happen? You're just going to ruin your car faster. right? And meanwhile, you're using more money, you're using more time and more effort going nowhere. That's called millions of people right now. I mean, and has been forever. I mean, this is nothing new, but this is what I've been teaching people for the last 2 decades, right? So in other words, what I do is I come up to you and I say, did you know you have your foot on the brake? And you're like, no. And I say, well, do you know if you get your foot off the brake, you can actually reach your goals faster? Really? Yeah. Well, and there's like some specific reasons why you have your foot on the brake in the first place, and you didn't even really realize you're doing that because, of course, nobody does it on purpose. But it doesn't matter, right? If you're holding yourself back, you ain't reaching your goals. So we can actually just get your foot off the brake, and you can reach your goals a lot faster. And you asked for an example of that. I mean, I've got hundreds of examples, but just one that comes to mind really quick, based on what I'm saying, is that I was speaking at a conference. It was a network marketing conference, in fact, for a network marketing company. And a woman named Sheila came up to me and she said, hey, Noah, I loved your presentation. It was great. Took a lot of notes. It was really exciting. But then she says, well, but I don't know. I kind of tried everything already. It sounds good, but I think I've probably done it all. Probably heard it all before. I'm like, okay, whatever. And anyway, so I came to find out later that, she's literally spent tens of thousands of dollars on, every self-help guru out there, right? And she was making about $5,000 a month in her business. And $5,000 a month, hey, that's not bad, right? Nothing to sneeze at, no problem there. But she wanted to make a lot more. She's like, well, I can do better than that. And she wanted to, and she was spending money and effort to do that, but she was just stuck at that $5,000 a month level. So I said, okay, anyway, so finally she decided to take a chance, and take a leap and hired me as her coach. And so I worked with her for about, a year and a half or so. And in that time, she literally went from making $5,000 a month in her business to where she was making $75,000 a month. From 5 to 75,000 a month, not a year, a month. I'm not that good at math, but that's a 15 times increase in about a year. Now, if you're on, Wall Street and you're making a 2% increase, you're like a genius. Well, this is 1,500%. So it's like, wow. Okay. So not only that, and she said, Noah, as we were working together, she said, Noah, not only am I making so much more money, she said, Noah, I'm working less to make $75,000 a month than I was to make $5,000 a month. And I'm like, okay, so you're not only making more money, you're working less. Are you okay with that? She's like, yeah, I'm kind of happy with that. So my point is, and people listening go, well, that doesn't make any sense. I'm like, well, but it actually makes perfect sense because think about it. You're driving down the road, right? And you have one foot on the brake. How hard is it going to be to reach your goal? You're going to take a lot of time, money, and effort. You still got to put gas in the tank, right? Even though you're not going anywhere, you still got to gas up. Like, man, why am I not moving? Well, because you got your foot on the brake. Again, it's not your fault. It's, you're doing it without even realizing. Nobody stops themselves on purpose, right? So, but the point is, doesn't matter whether you know it or not. Most people are doing it, or millions of people are doing it. And so it's like, okay, so then when you get the foot off, it's like, oh, wow, that's so much easier. Hence, 5,000 to 75,000 working less. You see, that's just one example, you understand, but I mean, it's a powerful example, and we've got hundreds of those.
Well, here's a practical questions. When I think of what all the experts suggest related to affirmations, you need to put them in front of you. You talked about your room, having Post-it notes on the wall. So in terms of we come up with our affirmations, how do we keep those in front of us, just kind of front and center, front of mind? And how often should we be reviewing those? Because for our mind to start kind of automatically working, we need to keep those in front of us on a regular basis.
That's correct. And so there are 4 ways that humans take in information. All right. The 4 ways are reading, writing, speaking, and listening. So those are the 4 modes of human communication: reading, writing, speaking, listening. So what I recommend to all of my coaching clients is use all 4. Right. So you want to read about affirmations, either in my book of affirmations or at afformations.com. That's an online course that we have. Right. So you can read, there's a guidebook, there's step-by-step instructions. It also has videos so you can watch. Right. So you're reading, you're writing, you're listening. And then we also have I invented something called I-Afform audio. So you can listen to them. You can actually, they're pre-recorded affirmations set to inspiring music. So we've got I-Afform audios in different categories like ultimate health, ultimate wealth, happy relationships, sleeping better, lowering your stress, and everything else. And you can find that at iafform.com, IAFFORM, iafform, like iTunes, iafform.com. So at Afformations.com, it really gives you all of those, of the 4 modes of reading, writing, speaking, and listening. So, and then also you want to really, with the iAfform audios, like you can have them going on in the background all the time. And, even while you're, doing your emails, even while you're watching TV or doing something totally unrelated, you can still have them going on in the background because your subconscious mind will still apprehend them and still accept them, So that's why we set it to cool music. So, you can actually, they can just literally be in the background. They don't have to be loud or something. You can just be on the phone even, and they're still reprogramming your subconscious mind. Because see, here's one of the things that I want to get across to everyone listening and watching this program, is that you're already using Afformations anyway. Every human being is already using my Afformations method. There's only 2 problems. Problem number 1 is they don't know they're doing it. And problem number 2 is most humans are walking around using disempowering Afformations. Like I said earlier, why am I so stupid? Why am I so fat? Why can't I lose weight? Why don't I have enough money? Those are just negative Afformations. But guess what? You're forming it anyway. That's where actually the word Afformations came from. I love Latin, right? As a nerd, I just love Latin, right? So the word affirmation comes from the Latin word formare, which means to make firm. But the word Afformations that I invented comes from the Latin word formare, Formare, to form or give shape to. So the question that I often ask my audiences or my coaching clients is, what if you're making something firm, but it's in the wrong form? That means you formed a life you didn't even want. Why am I so stupid? Why am I so fat? Why don't I have enough money? Why isn't my business growing? You formed it unconsciously, but it doesn't matter, right? Because of the law of sowing and reaping, it doesn't matter if it's conscious or not, you still formed it, right? So now with my Afformations method, for the first time in human history, we can take conscious control of the questions we're asking, change your questions, change your habits, change your results, and thereby change your life.
One of the things that I thought was really intriguing from your content is this idea of our minds kind of beginning to take over and wander as we're asking ourselves better questions, different questions. Is there an effective way, 1, to let our minds wander as best they can? And then 2, how do we capture those answers, those discoveries in a way that we can begin to see them manifest? Because we're not just sitting around aimlessly letting our minds just go off into never land. There's an intentionality and a direction we should be moving in.
That's right. And so one of the things that I work with my coaching clients on is in the morning, most people, when you get to a certain level of accomplishment or success, have, established like a morning routine, whether it's meditation or prayer or reading the Bible or whatever it might be. You obviously want to keep that going. Keep doing that. If you haven't done that yet, you want to start. I mean, you just got to start. That first 10 minutes of every day is really, really crucial because, of course, what most people do, another day, you hit the snooze button. And of course, now either you're going into work or you're not going into work, but whatever, and most people just hate it. And believe me, I know I was there before I discovered what I'm doing today now, and have been blessed to do over the last 2 decades. I hated going into work too. I mean, believe me, I know what that's like. And it sucks. It's like, is this life? And it wasn't life for me. So I understand that feeling. But anyway, what you want to do is have that in the morning and at night. So the first thing in the morning, that first 10, 15 minutes is really, really crucial to program your mind for success. I mean, it's like a radio, right? Your mind is like a radio and it has different frequencies, just like a radio, right? So you can, one is a rock station, then there's a country station, there's a jazz station, there's a, oldies, whatever, right? So there's all these different stations on these different frequencies. Well, it's just like that with our brain. Right. So you can have the frequency of I can't do it. I'm not good enough. Nobody likes me. I'm fat, whatever, and which is really negative. Again, those are negative Afformations. And then what I'm suggesting is you turn the dial, right, and use the empowering Afformations. And again, that is the methodology that you use. And so that's number 1. And then number 2 is, I do highly recommend, like I said earlier, those 4 modes: reading, writing, speaking, and listening. So as you get ideas, because as you start using my Afformations method, you're going to get some great ideas. I mean, I was just coaching one of my clients the other day, and she said, no, since using your Afformations, I got so many ideas, I don't even know where to start. I'm like, okay, well, that's a good problem, really, is to have more ideas, but remember, ideas are not enough. Ideas without implementation is just frustration. But ideas with implementation, that's what gives you results. I'll give you a quick example of that. I told you I grew up poor in a rich neighborhood in Kennebunkport, Maine. Well, it's a beach community there in Maine. My brother and I, we'd be on the beach, as kids. And I remember we were just like, 10, 12, 13 years old or something. And he turns to me and goes, what would be great is if there were spray-on tans. Wouldn't that be smart if there was a spray-on tan? Because instead of having to lie on the beach, you just spray it on. And I'm like, yeah, that is a pretty good idea. Yeah, no, okay. Of course, I didn't think any more of them. Like, well, whatever. Now, he had a great idea, but he didn't do anything. So, how much money did he make from that? Nothing. And meanwhile, whoever invented spray-on tans made $10 trillion, right? Because he did something about it, You see what I'm saying? So ideas are not enough. Even though it's a great idea, well, if you don't do anything, you're not going to get the results.
And Noah, for the person listening to us today, the person watching us today, what's that core call to action, that big encouragement you hope every person has heard from our talk?
Well, I guess it would really be that you are in control. You have much more power than you think. See, fear and control work in opposition. The more control you have over your life, your career, and your business, the less fear that you feel. But the less control you have, the more fear you're going to feel. That's why millions of people, through no fault of their own, are feeling a lot of fear right now because they've lost that control. But I'm here to tell you, and I've done it in my own life, and I've helped thousands and thousands of people do it over the last 2 decades. I mean, really, nobody has the kind of success stories that I have in this industry. I mean, helping more people make more money, over $2.7 billion, meaning helping people add 6, 7, and yes, even 8 figures to their business, because I teach you how to get that control back. Because the only way to get the control is to install the systems, the inner game systems and the outer game systems, like I said earlier in this conversation. But if you don't install the systems, you're not going to have the control, which means you've got to succumb to the fear. That's the one thing you never want. And you don't have to succumb to the fear, but you do have to install the systems if you want that control. And I'm here to tell you that it is possible.
And Noah, where can we go on the web to connect with you and find out more?
Afformations.com is a great place to start. And yes, you get 50% off because you're watching this program right now. Just Afformations, AFFORMATIONS, Afformations.com. And of course, my main website is noahstjohn.com. That's my name, just like it sounds, NOAHSTJOHN, noahstjohn.com. And make sure you tell me that you heard me here on Shaun's podcast, because he's a dear friend of us, of here at Success Clinic.
Well, like we do with every episode, we'll have detailed links in the show notes, places where you can connect with Noah, pick up your own copies of his books, link to our previous interview, all the things you're going to need right there. It's time to bring this episode of the Shaun Tabatt Show to a close. Many thanks for being a part of my conversation with Noah St. John. Personally, the one thing I hope you get out of this conversation today is that you see that you have a need in your life that could be filled by putting Afformations to work. And so the one thing I would encourage you to do right now, head on over to Afformations.com. Get 50% off the Affirmations system. It is going to change your life. And a lot of us are facing unprecedented challenges like we've never seen before. And so what do we need? We need to stop, as Noah said earlier, don't keep driving around the block and driving around in circles, because you're going to get the same result. And maybe we're in a time where you're going to get even lesser results if you keep doing those same things. So it's time to have a little disruption in your life. Maybe you're going to need to inject a little bit of chaos and go in a new direction to pursue, to find, discover the life that you've always wanted. Noah, always an honor, always a joy to have you on the show. Thank you for delivering such value to the audience today. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Anytime.